Start seated. Sense your sit bones on the surface. They contact. And slightly reach down. It's not a hard yank or pull, but it's perhaps a part allowing the low back to open down, and maybe a part intentionally feeling reaching a little bit lower than the sit bones. And from that anchor point, wash your breath through the perineum core, growing the low back away from the floor of the pelvis. Just as a way of getting oriented through the space of the pelvis. And while we're here, involve the low belly muscles as you exhale. So creating this elongated, steady outflow of breath. And continue that lengthening process through the mid-back. Can you feel the mid-back growing away from the low back? Rather than using the muscles to effort our body into place, can you feel breath having interaction through the body, as if breath itself is kind of, body is almost like seaweed in water. Each breath is this stream, this fluid stream through the body. The body is just being suspended and moved by the various currents. All the way up through the neck, and the head, just buoyantly swivel, floating atop the spine. Using those belly muscles with each exhalation. So I'm going to propose a little shift over to the wall. Before we go, I want to show you in profile what I think might be helpful. So I'll show on this wall. I'm going to have the long edge of the block, and I'm using a block it's not a real anatomically conforming material or shape rather, but that's kind of the point. And I want to show you where I'm placing this on my back. The bottom edge will align somewhat with the lower ribs or the diaphragm. So somewhere right in here is where I'll align the bottom edge of the block. So then when we get these exhaling muscles going, you're going to be able to feel if we're hinging or rocking the ribs back and forth around the diaphragm. So that's the function, that's the setup. If you have a block, just slide over to any surface that can support this. And as usual, it's not a hard lean. I'm just barely holding the block in place. There we go. So when we employ the low belly muscles, and that would be with our exhalation, if those bottom ribs can keep light contact with that block, I'm not jamming the ribs back in there. That would be a different move. It's likely you feel your ribs moving down. So there's a little detail in here that I think is important. And it's okay if you take a hand and you just kind of tuck your finger pad up near the ribs or near the block or under the block. Just, we're getting that area to not lift off of the block. And this is coming from an observation. The observation is when we're exhaling with our belly muscles, there might be one or a few of us that at the same time are flaring and lifting the chest up. Which is to say we're tightening, usually involving the low back and making the chest real proud and high, and it gives the abdomen a taut feeling like, it's working. And that's not a bad thing if you need to play the role of Popeye in a movie. That would be a really great thing to do to kind of make the abs tighten and the chest lift and the back squeeze. That would give you a very proud, broad chest. But for the purposes of breathing, and we'll just take one or two more breaths here, you're kind of on your own to check and feel, is that if you're using your belly muscles and you keep contact with the bottom of the block, there's really not that chest lifting. The exhale somehow incorporates the ribs and helps escort them down and together. Just take one or two more breaths to explore that. And if you're not getting a read on that, we can always chat about it when we see each other again. It might also have that side effect of feeling that the back of the ribs move as we exhale. So if I had to kind of categorize how we're approaching these practices the last many days, we've been focusing a lot on the front side and the back side, mostly the front side. All right, so we'll relax our seated position against the wall. Just let the block drop down. Now, why don't we just continue with our right leg straight? And if you are happy with your seated position, you can stay right there. And the left knee bent. I'm placing my heel in front of groin. Now, let me turn around. Here's another touch opportunity. That's an opportunity to touch. All right. So you can go with your fingertips right sit bone. And the hamstring, the back of the leg, connects there. And if you lift your butt up a little bit, so I'm leaning into my left leg, the heel to the sit bone, there's that gathering motion that enables this muscle to turn on. So I'm off my butt, gathering the heel and the sit bone together. And I'm going to keep using my fingertips to test, to touch. Keep gathering. It'll feel really firm, maybe. And I'll just start to fold forward. But I'm not letting that muscle relax. The bone, the sit bone, gets to scooch back toward the back of the mat. But I'm holding. And if you need to go both hands to the inside and the outside hamstring, that's perfectly fine too. Now we'll just kind of pause where it's a place where you can work, meaning breathe, elongate, be folded, but yet keep that hamstring involved. I'm saying involved. I don't want to say contract, but it's a contraction. I will take 3 deep breaths. So gathering the heel to the sit bone, the fingertips are just constantly checking that the muscle doesn't just go on vacation. And then engage that muscle as you come up. So actually kind of push the heel into the earth. I feel that tone of the hamstring stay involved as I come back up. All right. Oh, if you tend to have that pulled, nervy feeling in the hamstring, that's probably your move. And so that's what I mean by engaging the leg. Okay. Not just pulling on the tissues, which can get old very fast. But, all right, let's switch sides. So I've got my left leg extended, and I'll lean into my right thigh. My left hand goes by the sit bone, and just a little below the sit bone, so toward the foot. There's the hamstrings. And you might just have to kind of lean and keep just touching, feeling for how those back of leg muscles, how do they turn on? Because especially if you've pulled these before or injured them or strained, whatever, engaging them and contracting them can feel a little wiggly, a little elusive. And when you think you've got a good steady involvement, Inhale, grow the ribs away from the navel. And exhale, fold. I'm sitting a little bit of my butt onto my hand. It doesn't bother me, but if it bothers you, just fold, just veer your fold off so you don't have to smush your hands. And I'm just going to a workable spot. What's workable? Workable is I can hold that tone of the muscle, that contraction, the way that the heel and the sit bone gather together. Workable means I can feel that the bone is moving away from the heel, but I still keep the tone and the connectivity between the sit bone and the heel. The hamstring doesn't go to the heel, but the heel sure does help. And we'll give it a few more breaths. Make sure that hamstring stays happily employed. So check with fingers. Sometimes it gets relaxed very easily. And so as you maintain that muscle engagement, and you're elongating through the trunk, I imagine we're doing very different work than just kind of flopping the upper body over the legs and then as you gather the heel and the sit bone toward each other and come up out of the fold, you feel how the muscle actually lifts and helps and moves you up. So you don't have to like plod out of the pose. Your muscles are here to help. All right, let's lie on our back. There's some abdominals in our world today. And we'll be doing much of the same thing. Just feeling and finding the muscles as they come right up into that sit bone area. So with the hands supporting the head, inhale, we'll float the head and the shoulder blades off the ground. Curl tailbone. And now exhale the left leg out. With your left hand, go to the same area of your sit bone. And can you engage them here too? Ooh, low belly in and down. So you're getting both the hamstring and the low belly. Inhale, left knee bend. Curl tailbone, exhale the right leg out. Use your right hand fingertips to go to that same sit bone area. Just kind of a little hook touch in. And ensure the muscles kind of tonify, they perk up, pull low belly down. Get them both simultaneously. Inhale, right leg bend. Curl tailbone, and now exhale, reach out through the left leg. Reach with your left hand. Pull low belly down. At this point, you may be starting to notice if one side behaves differently than the other. On exhale, we'll curl tailbone, reach the right leg out, and the right hand just kind of hooks into that sit bone area, feels, checks. Now hold that hamstring tone as you draw the belly in and down. Let's do 3 more on each side. Continue your pace. There you go. Can you spread the foot bones and keep the tone of the muscle in the back of your leg? Can you reach the leg out and keep the tone of that muscle engaged in the back of the leg? Can you draw the belly down and keep the tone of the muscle in the back of your leg? Even if you've sprained or injured a foot, an ankle, a knee, these are good things to check in with. Sometimes the hamstrings, they're just part of the healing process. They don't need to rotate bone, or they don't need to propel or push the same way for a few weeks. All right. So we'll press up into bridge, and for the moment, this is just going to be a low on the block supported bridge. I'll be placing my block the 6-inch height under the sacrum. So today I am not going as high as possible. I'm just exhaling the hips up and sliding a block either 3 inches or 6 inches high under the pelvis. This will give you the chance to just lean your weight onto the block. And we'll stretch our arms over our head, which is on the ground. So inhaling, expand and lift the ribs away from the block, waist, hips. And then exhale, use your low belly muscles, reach the thigh bones away from your ribs. Stretch the fingertips away from the block. So you might be getting some little internal stretches or little tugs in the lat. That's fun. I'm going to add to this a little bit of Uddiyana. We're going to keep our usual exhale going. So as you're exhaling, you're using those belly muscles, low belly muscles, and they somewhat gather or cinch the breath as if from the bottom out the top, kind of like a little pastry bag. Squeeze from the bottom. And when you near the end of your exhale, keep stretching the hands overhead, the arms overhead, and draw the belly in, reaching the thigh bones away from the block. And simply soften the belly to inhale again. We'll do one more. So it's like a super exaggerated exhale, almost at the threshold of an Uddiyana. Keep your Ujjayi exhale sound. Stretch the arms up over your head on the ground. As you keep exhaling, send the thigh bones away from the block. Keep exhaling, getting toward empty. Gather the low belly muscles. Reach the thigh bones away from the block. And simply relax the abdomen to inhale. Now with feet active, exhaling, we'll press off of that block and lower the spine down to the ground. Turn onto a side. Let's set up a little bit of wall-based dolphin stuff. I'll do it in profile here. I'm going to take two angles. So one angle is my arm is to the side of my torso, and the other angle is our setup for dolphin, or my chest facing the wall. Okay. So that's all the wall space we need for this version of dolphin, and I hope the setting up will be easy. So I have my elbow about shoulder height or a little bit lower. Move the shoulder, the top of the shoulder away from the ear. And I'm reaching out through the arm. So keep this side position for just a moment, because I want to describe a few little details and you can feel for it in your body. First, can you feel breath in the front of the chest and the back of the ribs? And as you're exhaling, outreaching, we can say pushing the wall, can you feel your shoulder blade kind of moving toward the wall as your ribs move ever so slightly away from the wall? Can you feel that rib-shoulder blade interplay, that gliding interplay? Is there any movement? Take another deep breath. Back side of ribs and front side of ribs. And once more, draw the shoulder down. Exhale, move the elbow away from the ribs, and then counter move the ribs away from the elbow. So the ribs are kind of moving away from the forearm away from the ribs, and now start that turning action that brings us into that dolphin setup. So our chest is facing more the wall. And so the action is the same. The limb is, you can say, reaching or pushing, and the ribs are counter-reaching or counter-rotating behind the shoulder blade. The nice thing about this setup is you can just keep rotating your ribs around. You're not having to conform to the dolphin setup where the arms get locked into a place. All right, let's release that side and we'll do the other side. So we'll start with the arm to the side, and I touch the elbow and the forearm to the wall, about shoulder height. So if I'm getting really proud and poofy in the front of my chest and body, I might not feel that shoulder blade move. If I exhale and the ribs gather down, my body, I'm much more apt to feel that the shoulder blade can glide. So again, our breath matters a lot to the shoulder and the shoulder blade. So I don't get overly chest puffy here. Let the ribs get gathered down, drawn down. Reach through the arm, counter reach through the ribs. And then you can start to turn the ribs into our more usual dolphin setup where the chest starts to face the wall. So reach through the arm limb, counter reach through the ribs. So if I'm pushing my butt back, I miss a lot of these moves. If I'm kind of wiggly through the low back and the belly and the hips, I kind of miss a lot of these shoulder blade dynamics. So that's where that tailbone down, the exhalation gathering, the abs, moving the ribs, all that orchestration will help the shoulder. So that's plenty good. Let's release away from the wall and let's move back to our mat. I'm grabbing my block. We're getting right into extended warrior. I think that was enough dolphin. I'm going to set the right leg forward. The same dynamic. I just want to reach through the left arm. And I'm counter reaching or counter rotating the ribs away or back. So extended warrior. I've got the right hand down, the right leg is forward, and the left arm reaches overhead. Okay, so there's no wall in front of us now, but we can still play. We can still play as if we're sending our tricep and our forearm toward something in front of us. And as if we're counter-rotating, counter-leaning our ribs, upper left ribs, back away from that notion of a wall. It's not just the kind of throwing out of the arm, but the ribs are doing something. The trunk is doing something. Inhale, bring the left hand down, and we'll switch into a warrior one stance. So for me, it's just enough of a foot move so my pelvis is more oriented toward the narrow front part of my mat. Now, I actually want to pause here in this bent over position. I'm going to get my blocks. And I'm just propping off my right arm because I want to point with my left. This left foot pitched in. Give it some friction, give it some ground contact. Remember that hamstring from long, long ago? Okay. can you involve that hamstring, that inner left leg, as if you're turning or smearing your foot? I don't want you to actually turn the toes inwardly, but can you smear as if you're turning the toes inwardly and the hamstring is lighting up? Remember that, all that hamstring touch? Find out if you can elicit such a feeling out of that left leg. And if so, hold on. Inhale. Reach with the left arm. Reach out across the right knee. Twisting, extended warrior. Exhale. Hooking that left arm over the right thigh. You can use a block. Hamstring, if it's getting a little quivery, that might be our challenge today. And the right arm reaches overhead. So earlier in our abdominals, feeling the sit bone area muscles. And even a little bit to the inside, so into the groin, those inner hamstrings. Feel for those here. I think we can do a lot of good if we can involve those muscles as we're in these twists. We do our back, our spine, our inhale, lengthen the ribs, chest away from the hips. And once more, as you exhale, gather those low belly muscles, the leg muscle. Inner leg is very on, so very on. And I will unwind. Inhale. Set the hands under your shoulders. And as you exhale, chaturanga. Inner legs, they're a thing here. Lower all the way down, we'll do cobra. Shift the tailbone toward the ground. Notice the back, the top of your pelvis actually lifts toward the sky a little bit. Inhale into your abdomen. And then use hands to press the ground, pulling the chest forward and pushing the chest up. Exhale, lower down, hands under chest, downward dog. All right, so we'll start with that extended warrior. Inhale the left foot forward, warrior two. Use a block to prop your left hand if that's helpful. The right toes, they're pitched in. That's what I... So part of that pitching in, you can actually get that internal rotation. Reach out through the heel, those buttock muscles. Roll in, push. That's very nice on the back. Let's try to use that right foot. It's not just like a flipper on the ground, but there's a spirilic, almost smearing motion that can activate a lot of the foot arch. Rolls that thigh in, press out through the heel, lighting up those hamstring. Remember those? Now the right arm is reaching. The ribs counter reaching. So all these basic moves that we do, we can find them again and again and again in these poses. There you go. Yes. There's some happy back legs. Inhale from low back through mid ribs to upper ribs. Exhale, the heel reaches away, the arm reaches away from the heel, the ribs counter-rotating. We could say opening the chest, but feel the whole ribs rotating. Now inhale, bring the right hand down. We change our footing. More of a warrior one stance. So adjust the right foot so pelvis faces mainly forward, the narrow edge of your mat. And again, that's smearing motion as if I'm pulling the toes to point forward and pushing the heel away from the sit bone. Can you feel those inner legs way high up by the sit bone groin? Can you feel those turning on? So inhale, reach that right arm out over the left knee. Exhale, hook that right arm over the thigh for twisting extended warrior. Left arm, you can reach that overhead. So I guess the big question is, maybe we can get that hamstring to remain engaged. Can we do it for 1, 2, 3 breaths? Can we keep that wonderful involvement of the hamstring for 3 breaths? Sometimes this is where I use a wall. I just make my pose up a little higher. So if I concern myself with getting my torso as wrapped up and low to the ground as I can, I'll often miss all the great things in the leg. So it's okay to undo the twist a little bit. All right, inhale, unwind, set the hands down under shoulders. Exhale, chaturanga. All right, tops of feet on the ground, a little shift in the tail. So there's that little shift in the whole pelvis. Inhale, use those back muscles, lift the chest up, use the hands, pull the chest forward, push. The mid-back lifts away from the low back. Exhale, downward dog. And if the legs are engaged, feel for the tone, the involvement, the looseness or the contractedness. They don't have to be a certain tone, but it's nice to be able to feel these things. This is helpful when we have injuries. It's helpful in coming out of injuries. All right. Step your feet forward and simply arrive at standing. Just going to do a little bit more. We'll be ending a little bit sooner than usual this morning. Okay, but I'm going to go upside down because we can. We're going to try to get all of these wonderful things working together. So there's this. You can do it with me. When we reach the leg, there's a way of feeling that hamstring pull on the sit bone. Whoop. I'm kind of exaggerating, but that's the heel and the sit bone can whoop, work together. There's that reach, wrap, and rotation of the arm and the ribs together. Let's see what we get. You can do this in handstand. If you don't like handstand, you can do it as downward dog on the wall, reaching one leg up at a time. So if, for example, and if you're heading in there already, that's fine. So when I'm reaching with the leg, it's not like a heavy, loose, massive leg. Those hamstrings It'll help me feel where my sit bones, my pelvis are in air. All the hamstring, all the inner leg. If you want to do downward dog on the wall, and then raise a leg to the sky, that's also a wonderful, steady option. So just a few things we're playing with today, but now we're just putting them all together like juggling. There's a heel to sit bone connection. Use the hamstring to help you feel the sit bone, the butt in space. There you go. Woo. And get both those inner legs, backs of legs, inner legs, a deep inner and back of leg. Kind of drawing the sit bones to the air. If we can get to the muscles, there's a lot we can do with the skeleton. And there's the wrapping of the arms, the shoulders. But there's also a counter to that wrap through the ribs. Take as much time as you need. I'll just kind of roughly count us at least an 8-breath experiment time. There you go. Yes. There it is. Yes, there it is. I see the float. I see it. Looks like he grew like a buoyancy 2 inches back there in the wall. Just trying it out. All right. So just continue until you feel complete. Just making whatever connections can be made. And to give the wrists just a little sweetness, I'll lie on back, and with an interlace, I'll go around the foot. Now I have an idea if you can't interlace around your foot. But I'm going to just involve the muscles of the leg. Just sink the shoulders toward the ground and just let the fingers kind of drape around the foot. Now if I can't get my hands around the foot, here's your other option. Make a small loop. Place the loop around your wrists and hands. And step your foot into the little strap stirrup. Okay, release, and we'll do the other foot. If you're using a strap, it's not a very technical setup, but sometimes seeing it helps us to get the feeling. All right. Release and rest. the straps, the feet, all the things. So we approach today as just kind of a map enrichment. How does the mind map the body? And so there's these many processes to not only learning but awakening this consciousness in the body. And sometimes we visualize, kind of know where we're about to embark. And then there's the mind-body connection, which is kind of the brain leading by way of the visualization, the map, to find the terrain. But then there's the inhabitation, the existing as that part of the body, being, sensing, relating as that part of the body, not as the brain leads us there, but just as the cells. And as we awaken to that being as the body, the hope is we discover that wakefulness and that consciousness that is. The body is a sensory instrument of consciousness. So when you're ready, bend knees, turn to a side, and use hands to press to seated. Namaste.